Hi, thanks for tuning in to the Well Built Podcast. This is Chad Prinky. I'm here today with a guest who is one of the partners at Dowdle Construction. This is Chase Manning. Chase, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Look forward to diving into a conversation. I think it'll be, a kind of a variety show today. It'll be a good time. We'll talk about, I think the core, the hub of where I'd like to steer a lot of the discussion is in, employees and what we're doing to attract and retain and compensate our talent, as well as, some other things that kind of influence that, market dynamics, business structures, things along those lines. So before I go much further, tell us a little bit about Dowdle Construction. How long you've been around, about what size are you, that type of stuff, just for context for our listeners.
Sure. So we're about a $50 to $60 million a year company in revenue. We have 30 employees. We've been in business since 2004. There's been some name changes. It was Dowdle Construction, Aaron Dowdle, and now Dowdle Construction Group since 2012. Glenn Dowdle was the founder of the company. He retired a couple years ago, and then Alan Buchanan and myself bought him out a couple years ago.
Yeah. So actually, before you tell me if you don't want to go here, but before we go down any other lines, one of the top topics that we're talking with our clients about all the time is business succession, sale and transition, that type of stuff. So you and another employee, it sounds like, bought out the founder and then the founder and a partner at the time. What vehicle, what mechanism did you guys use to execute the buyout? How did that go down? Was that owner finance? Did you guys happen to have a stockpile of cash and were able to buy them out? How'd you pull that off?
Yeah. So it was, at the time, it was just Glenn. He was the owner. He let myself and Alan become minority partners in about 2016. And at the time, we were 10% owners each in the business. And so we did have to kind of come up with some cash to get.
So y'all had to buy in 10% each at that time?
Correct.
Cool. Yeah.
And then as the business grew, obviously the valuation of the business grew, but luckily, we were already 10% owners. And then when Glenn decided to retire, well, let me step back. At that point in time, there were actually three minority partners: Eric, Alan, and myself. Eric left the company to move to DC. His wife was from there, and he chose love over career. And so we're still great friends with Eric, and he's living up in DC. But when he sold out his 10%, Alan and I each bought his 5%.
Got it. So then y'all moved up to 15 each.
Yep. So then it came down to the remainder of it. And so when it was time for that to happen, we had an operating agreement in place, which I would say every business, even construction businesses, you have to have an operating agreement in place. Do not get into a partnership or anything without an operating agreement in place. But luckily, we had already predefined it, so that way it wasn't, as difficult as it could have been.
It was already spelled out.
It's all spelled out in the operating agreement. We had ours set out where we would, basically, Glenn would stop working. We would pay him out using proceeds from the company over X amount of time.
Yep. So that's owner financed exit, and a couple of quick things I want to highlight there. Just before we move off of it, is number one, you guys followed a best practice that we're all about, which is you don't give people equity, they buy it, and that's a really important principle. And there are a bunch of different vehicles that people don't have to buy that aren't exactly the same as $1 hard equity. But when somebody does buy, they are buying $1 hard equity, which is great. And, what that also enabled you guys to do, if I can put that story together, is to have, some financial strength and more ability to help to accelerate that buyout, with the majority owner through. Then the majority owner says, hey, I'm ready to step away. and you guys have a valuation method already established in your operating agreement, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Right? You go through that valuation method. The numbers are kind of what they are. And, you were at that point in a position to buy 70% of his ownership over time, and he had to be patient, and the company had to be successful, and all those things had to be true. But that is a very common and very straightforward way to create a business exit for Glenn. So good for him and good for you guys. That sounds like a story well executed, and it sounds like, just from the tone in your voice, and I'm a decent read on people, it sounds like it was amiable.
Yeah, and I hope it would be, because Glenn's actually my father-in-law, so he takes my kids, horseback riding and all the things. So,
It sure would make Thanksgiving uncomfortable.
It would make Thanksgiving awkward, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people have that, by the way. Uncomfortable Thanksgivings are a common theme in family business transitions. So I'm glad you dodged that bullet. That's awesome. Okay, good. And so 30 people, 50 to 60 million. You got to be a general contractor at that point, right? Or a trade contractor that subs all your work. But I know you guys are GCs. Yeah,
we are. Yeah, we're GC.
And just on the GC front for a minute, are most of your contracts lump sum, general contract, GC straight up, or are you doing general conditions and fees and kind of go an open book? How do most of your engagements work?
I'm revealing some trade secrets here. So it's a bit of both. I would love to do everything on lump sum. It makes everything from an accounting standpoint so much easier when you're billing percentage of completion. But we're very big in the hospitality business. We do a ton of hospitality work. And because it's kind of a special niche for us, we really try to get in as early as we can on deals. And so that means we're involved in early process where they're still doing design development, schematic design, and then all the way up into construction drawings. And so what we try to do is make sure that we get in with architects, developers as early as possible. And then when we do that, no matter whether they choose us to do lump sum or a cost plus with a GMP, our motto has always been to just kind of go open book. If we know that we're their guy, so we'll try to sign here's what we really like to do. Sign a pre-construction agreement with us. Say it's $10,000. You're getting ready to build a $2 million restaurant. What's 10 grand? We're going to come on and help the design team. During that process, we're going to provide budget pricing during the SD, DD, and CD phase, offer any VE suggestions we see, so we're providing value. And all we're really doing is billing up to $10,000 for our hourly time. And we basically put it in those clauses on those pre-con agreements that if you hire us as your contractor, then I waive the $10,000. Basically, the only time you'd pay it is if you chose not to do the project or chose to go with somebody else. But you still got that value-added service from us during the design process. But in both those situations, if they're signing a pre-con agreement with us, we're going to go open book either way and show them, hey, here's our 3 mechanical bids we got. Here's our 3 electrical bids. Sit down at a table with them and kind of show them everything we got. Say, hey, this electrician, he may not be the lowest. He's about $10,000 high, but we've done a ton of work with him. We think that he's a really good fit for this job, and he's not covered up right now, so we know he can really man it up, and we can make sure that we can hit the schedule out of the park. And then you can also have the conversation at that point about, like, we're just agreeing to what our fee is going to be and our general conditions. And even on our general conditions, we'll show, like, hey, our superintendent makes this every week. Our project manager we're going to charge 33% of his time to the project. He's going to need this. And so we'll pretty much go open book. It's kind of like a mechanic. You don't know if you're getting a good deal on your new transmission unless you go maybe shopping around with other mechanics.
Sure.
What we try to do is we try to take that out of the equation and just say, like, look, we'll go open book with you. We'll show you all our numbers, exactly how we got to where we did. We'll show you every sub bid we got, so you see exactly what we see. And then we're just having a discussion about fee. And then at that point, it's a lot more of a conversation about, do they feel comfortable with you as the contractor? Do they know that you bring the expertise to the table in the area of construction that they're building? And so sometimes we're the right fit. If it's hospitality or some cool projects, some cool historic restoration, we do a decent amount of historic restoration. So a lot of times we're a really good fit for that from a resume standpoint. And then we're just having a conversation about like 1 or 2 percentage points on fee. I don't think many people are going to want to make, the decision on who they're working with over just 1 or 2 points, of a percentage on a $2 million job.
I think it's a fantastic approach, and I there's like 10 things in there that I'd love to unpack. I'll focus on 3. The first is that what you led off with, and I think that's a really, really, really important piece for the audience to take away, is that when you can claim a specialization in a market, and when I'm talking about a market here, I'm specifically talking about a sector. When you can claim a specialization in a sector, it enables you to go to market as a consultant, really, as an advisor, right? And there's your pre-construction agreement, which is nominal, designed to cover your costs. But what's also true is there's a psychological principle at play, which is that once people make a financial commitment to one company, they are less likely to make a financial commitment to a different company on that same project. They start to feel what it's like to truly work together, as opposed to go through some competitive budgeting process with multiple people where they're not really working with any of them, and all of them have let's just call it a motivation to look as low as they can possibly look, even though that may not be what the price ends up being, right?
Right.
So it's a better experience for the customer. It's a great experience for your company. And I wonder if statistically, what percentage of the time do they sign a pre-construction agreement with you and not work with you?
The only time that they don't is if for some reason they decide not to do the project, and that's right. Pretty rare.
So you see what happens, right? And they may go out for a competitive bid, even if they do the pre-construction with you, though I'd imagine that's a relatively low number as well. Since you're going open book, that's a great way of doing it. But if they're worried and the budget's still not, working the way they want, maybe they at that point put it out for competitive bid. But even so, they're coming back home and they're working with you at that stage. I think that's an excellent practice. And so there's 2 things that, that I wanted to unpack. And then the third in there is the psychology of going open book. And this is not just a psychological thing. It's also a thing that relates to funding entities, that a lot of funding, let's say banks or investment groups, have some policy that you got to get multiple bids, right? And they want to, and you get a lot of owners who are like, sorry, I got to put this out for multiple bid. We're going to have to do it that way, right? But the truth is that as long as you conduct a multiple bid in every trade category, and all in all, your general conditions and fee are what, 10, 12, 15, I'm not going to ask you to disclose, but it's a relatively small portion of the overall cost of construction. And if you can illustrate to that funding institution, if you're able to show them that we've conducted a full-on competitive bid, you can often avoid having to compete as the general contractor at that stage. So good for you guys. I mean, those are a lot of the best practices that we'd be trying to implement inside a business, and particularly getting paid for your pre-con agreement.
Well, I'm going to steal that idea from. I'm going to steal that idea from you about on the situations where the bank requires 3 bids. I love that idea that, hey, yeah, we've already competitively bid it. Here's 3 electrical bids. Here's 3 mechanical.
Correct. Matter of fact, I don't have 3 bids for you. I have about 140.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we get so many sub bids on one job.
Correct. Yep. And when you can show them that data, they'll look at that and be like, all right. Yeah, it depends on how formal they are. I'm not saying that'll happen every time, but there's a lot of wiggle room. Once you actually, like, if you can create a dialogue, the difference is you got to go from talking to Bank of America to talking to Ken.
Yeah.
For Bank of America, you got to get to Ken and you got to show Ken what's up, and then he can say, oh, well, let me bring this to underwriting. Because if all we're really talking about is this 10% of the overall project cost wrapped up in your general conditions and fee, well, then hell, that's maybe we just compete that, if you need to compete that, but that's it usually at that point kind of a moot point.
And one of the things that I've learned being in this business for over 15 years now, is people want to work with who they want to work with, not necessarily who's the rock bottom. And so by going open book, we show the value that like, hey, these are the numbers, but it's more about just knowing that like, hey, we really get along with this owner. They really like us as a contractor, or we hope they like us. And if they don't, then we know that, then that's fine. They're going to go competitively bid it. But it's all about getting your foot in the door, building that relationship, and people are going to want to work with who they want to work with and that treat them right. And going open book, I think, is a really good way that owners get that instant thing like, hey, these guys are not trying to get one over on.
So I can already hear some of our audience members in the back of my head saying, "Sure, Chase, that's how things might work in Nashville, but that's not how they work in blah blah blah, right? Wherever." And I'm just here to tell the audience that's bullshit. It works that way all over the country. And here's the thing that I really want to call out that Chase is demonstrating for us, and it's really a top 2% contractor mindset here, is that he believes that the owners want to work with who they want to work with based on trust and relationship and liking, right? Just bond and a sense of comfort. And because he believes it, that's what's happening. And I can't tell you enough, man, seriously, how many contractors struggle, how many GCs struggle and find that it's always low bids, just a low bid game. That's all they ever care about. Nobody cares about anything other than price. Well, I got to tell you what, man, you walk around believing that, I guarantee you'll make it true. And so, what's going on between your ears related to that subject is a big deal. We got to shift gears to talking about your sort of the talent side of the equation, because you're a young guy, man. Like you're
I had my 39th birthday yesterday.
There you go, and I didn't. So no, I'm joking. We're close to the same age. I'm only 42, and but there is a something about, I think, a young executive, young business owner that is leading a team that is a small and growing organization that there's going to be a take that you have on talent that I'd really like to grab. So first question, what's your outlook on Gen Z? Like what's the story you're telling yourself in your head about the incoming generation of workers into our industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been a changing of the guard in construction over the last probably 5 to 10 years. It seems like there's all the guys, that have been here doing this for 30, 40 years. And there's a big changing of the guard because those guys are getting ready to get to the retirement age and what's next, right? And that's always been the big question. And now we've got AI and all the stuff that, you hear out there on the news. Well, obviously AI is going to be impacting builders. AI is not going to replace builders, but builders who use AI will replace builders who don't. But as far as what we've seen for Gen Z is that changing of the guard, we got to start training this next generation. And so as a general contractor, we're not really self-performing much. There's a ton of opportunity for kids who are, debating on whether to go to college or trade school or jump right into a career path. But what we've seen is we've hired several young kids, probably under 29. I guess that's Gen Z. What does Gen Z start now? Is it 32?
Well, hell if I know. It's in that zone though. You got it. I think if you start with a 2, you're a Gen Z. If you start with a 3, you're a millennial. That's kind of how I think about it.
That's okay, fair enough. So yeah, we've got a couple of Gen Z guys with us right now. With Gen Z, they're interesting because unlike our dads stayed with a company. Like they got out of school, they went to go work for like Ford Motor Company or wherever. And it was like, that was who they were with. Like that was part of their identity, was like the company that they were with. And they knew there was like that unwritten contract, like, hey, like I'm going to hire and then I'm going to retire with this company and they're going to give me a pension. And there's that two-way contract. Well, obviously times have changed. Nobody's really doing pensions anymore. That's just not in the reality. And so with Gen Z, they're a lot less about like who they go to work for, but more about like what does their individual career path look like. And are you offering an opportunity that looks fun to them? Does it look like something that they can grow and succeed in? Is it something that's going to compensate them fairly? Because Gen Z knows what the market rate is, because headhunters, love them or hate them, but they've really changed the game over probably the last 10 years. The days of putting your resume on ZipRecruiter and, putting your own resume out there, or if you're an employer like myself, like posting it on LinkedIn or, ZipRecruiter, Monster, all those days. Like if I was to post a resume on monster.com or ZipRecruiter, I will get 500 recruiter emails within 3 hours. They just scour those. So
well, their robots scour them.
Their robots scour it. So I mean, I'm sure if you're an employer listening to this, you get those emails. Like, here's a bunch of guys. And if you're an employee, then you're getting emails from recruiters all the time. Like, hey, what are you making now? I can get you X. And so everybody knows really what the market is paying. So as far as the compensation piece, you got to make sure you're staying competitive with the market is, making sure that you're always advancing them financially to what the market's at. You got to make it a fun place to work, some place that they enjoy coming to every day. And you've got to make it have that career trajectory where they're going to build more fun and just different things, right? Like they can't get bored. That's one thing I've noticed with Gen Z.
They like variety.
Love variety.
Yeah, and what about work-life balance? That seems to be another theme that comes out a lot with that group. I think maybe watching their parents seem like workaholics.
Yes.
What's their perspective? What do you see from them on balance?
Yeah, they love a balance. I'll tell you, Gen Z is one of the hardest working generations while they're here. Like when they're at work, like Gen Z will bust their ass. What they don't want to do is, depending on the person, but most of the Gen Zers that I'm seeing like in construction, like when they leave at, 3:30, 4 o'clock for the day, like they really would love to turn their mind off. So that's kind of what we see as far as that. But, work-life balance has been an interesting thing. And, it applies to Gen Z, but it also, what we're seeing now is that it also applies to some of the older folks too. And maybe they're taking notes from their kids and they're like, hey, my kid's like getting off at 4 and enjoying life a lot more than I am. So, we're seeing that as well. And even the older generations that, we've hired several, very experienced superintendents. We've been really fortunate in some of our superintendents to come from really large GCs. Turner, Skanska, all these big guys, right? Like they're great GCs, great companies to work for, great companies, have great track record. But look, like if you're a Skanska or J.E. Dunn or one of these guys and you get a job in Nashville, you're building a tower and all of a sudden like that job's over and hey, we didn't get this other tower down the road. Well, you're moving to Austin, Texas if you want to stay with J.E. Dunn or you're moving to wherever. And, these guys, if you're a Gen Z and, got hired on at 24 and you've been living in Nashville for 3 years working on this tower, now you're married and maybe you got a kid, you've started establishing roots here. And so a lot of those guys are not wanting to move. And even the older guys who've been kind of those road warrior superintendents that we all know that, have been all across the country, well, they're like, man, like my home life is really suffering because I get to see my wife and kids every other weekend when the company flies me home. So we've hired several superintendents that it's like, yeah, we may not be able to pay quite as good as like a J.E. Dunn or a Skanska, but we're going to be as competitive as we can be for a mid-market GC. We're going to pay you a market rate, and you're going to get to go home every night, every weekend. Yeah. Like we don't do jobs outside of Nashville, Middle Tennessee area. Like you're going to have that work-life balance. So we found that as a huge success and a huge motivating factor to a lot of folks.
Awesome. So the notes that I took during your description there of how to get Gen Z to love their work, right? To be engaged, is you got to make it fun. You got to offer them a trajectory. There's got to be variety, and you got to handle compensation correctly. What do you do to make it fun, man? What are some of the things that you're doing to make work fun for these folks? Yeah.
So, our tagline is we build places you want to go, TM. But, we build fun things. Like it's pretty cool if you're a 27-year-old guy or even a 40-year-old guy and you're like, hey, I built Federales in Nashville. Let's go shoot some tequila tonight and try to throw the shot glass at the Bell. Like I built that place. So we built some fun stuff first off. But it's also about like making sure that it's like that team environment. I know that's so cliche to say, like everybody's like, oh, we've got a collaborative team atmosphere, but it's making sure that like those guys in the field don't feel like they're on an island, because all the office guys, it's easy for us to sit in here and like, I can go over to someone at Alpha's office and go eat lunch with them or whatever. But it's like making sure that we're trying to not put them on an island when they're on their job. So whether that's making sure that your PMs are going out regularly for job site visits, making sure that the superintendents have an opportunity to come into the office to like update schedules, say hey to everybody while they're here, grab a lunch. We're getting ready to do a charity event. We love giving to charity. A lot of GCs are really generous with their money, and so like we're doing an upcoming fundraiser, like it's skeet shooting, right? We're going to go skeet shooting, and all the guys loved going on this. I think we've got 16 people signed up to go skeet shooting here in May, so that'll be a fun outing. Everybody will take the afternoon off and we'll go skeet shooting. So try to do fun things like that. We'll do like a baseball thing at a Nashville Sounds game this summer. We have really fun Christmas parties and really, really fun after parties. So, just trying to make sure that it's like, look, like what we do is important, and what we do and what we build is a lot of other people's livelihoods. But like, we're not curing cancer in kids. Like, we're not that important. So let's not take it too seriously where we can't have some.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I think a lot of it is just posture too. And it's set like vibe, that's set by leadership. And again, this goes to, there's a lot of things here that, I've always been torn, and I think most of us are, between what are those things that we really need to turn into like a process. Well, we hold, 6 team building events per year across this variety of things, and then we give every employee a handshake every third day, and we keep a thank you note card process, and you got to submit 15 thank yous and shit. Like there are some things that just don't need to be a process. Yeah. It just needs to be a culture. It just needs to be a decision. It needs to be going on in your mind all the time, and then you'll just consistently make the decision that when the opportunity arises, leans a little bit more toward the culture you're trying to create. And so if you're trying to create a culture of fun, let's make sure that we get the PM out in the field, and let's make sure that we pull that superintendent into the office. And let's make sure that when the super comes into the office that we, say, hey man, great to see you. And we buy lunch, and, and everybody in the office gets to enjoy hanging out with that super who's not usually there. And, that kind of stuff. And, a good opportunity arises to put together a team building event. You do that, that different type of stuff. But I can tell there's not a lot that's formulaic in what you're describing, and more just kind of instinctual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just treat people like they want to be treated and have fun. Like, I mean, it's all culture, and it's just, having the right attitude and hiring the people that want to have the same kind of attitude.
Well, and that's a big piece of it, right? Because I've so many companies that, I've worked with are like, we do these team building events, nobody shows up, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, you're not hiring people who want to do team building events. And I think that's okay. You don't have to be the company that does team building events, but how are you going to engage your staff where they want to be engaged? Right. And
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. When I'm interviewing someone, I can usually tell, like, if I'm going to hire them or not. Well, let me put it this way. I can already tell you if I'm not going to hire them in about 10 minutes or less of the interview. And then you
tell them and save the time, because that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, can I cut this hour-long interview down to 10 minutes, because we're just not really vibing. Like, that's kind of like that first checkbox in my mind is like, will I enjoy working with this person every day? Not just do they check all the boxes like, oh yeah, there'll be a great super or there'll be a great PM, but like, am I going to enjoy working with this person?
Yeah, that's cool. Well, it's a good way to protect your vibe. It's a good way to protect your existing culture. There are some dangers associated with it that I could get into on a separate conversation where I'm actually advising you instead of you advising our audience. But I could, there are some risks associated with it. But like, by and large, I hear you. You want to, the most important thing, and you can't really go wrong with this, is that you're able to spot where somebody's going to be a good fit for your culture, where they're going to be happy within it, where they are going to perpetuate it. And, we're going to keep our good thing going. And so that's great. So I've talked about fun. Talk to me about career trajectory. What are the strategies that you have to hit that need for the incoming workforce that needs to be able to see themselves on a career trajectory?
Yeah, absolutely. Every 22-year-old when they graduate college is like, well, what's the 401k plan look like? No, I'm just kidding. No, it's, making sure that whenever they go, so we have a guy who started with us probably about 6 months ago. He just graduated from college and, knew he didn't want to be stuck behind a desk doing what a lot of college kids do. So he knew pretty quickly that he wanted to go in the field path. And so we put him out in the field as an assistant superintendent. Obviously, he's very green, been here about 6 months or so. And, we don't have like this, scan skill, like, okay, you're field engineer level 1 for 2 years. And then
you don't have all these different roles and designations. You don't have enough people to justify.
No, I don't have enough people to do that. It's like, look, we're going to put you in, like, we'll call it like, we basically have two types of supers. Well, really 3 if you count our general superintendent. But we got assistant superintendent and then superintendent, right? And so assistant superintendent are the greener guys. And you're gonna be an assistant superintendent for however long it takes, right? Like generally, I would like to say that's probably within 3 to 5 years, right? That we would feel comfortable with you running, a $3 to $4 million project. Some guys might be less if they're really good. Some guys might be more. That's all kind of individualized. It's not like it's set in stone for us, but making sure that there's at least that path there. Like, okay, look, I'm going to graduate college. I'm going to start off as an assistant super. I'm going to learn everything I can, and for me, that's probably going to be a lot of grunt work for a little while. I get that. Everybody's going to have to, pay a little bit of their dues. But I'm also going to get the opportunity, like, hey, while this superintendent's maybe on vacation here in 4 weeks from now, like, yeah, I know I can just always call the PM or even call that super while he's on vacation. But I'm going to be the man for about a week, and I'm going to be making sure that we got everything. Now, my general superintendent may be checking in on you a little bit more, but you're running the show, and that's pretty cool if you're, 22, 23 years old, fresh out of school. So there's that path of like, okay, I know that at least I'm going to work my way up to superintendent, and from there, I'm going to work my way up into more fun, complex jobs. Like, my first job as a super might be a, $500,000 little office build out, and then, maybe after a couple of years, and then I start getting into like some really high end like restaurants, right? Like $5-6 million plus, restaurants. Maybe even ground up restaurants. And so there's always like that next step. So, always just making it fun and something for them to do.
Yeah. Understood. So that kind of, I think, double dips into the variety topic, right? Is that if you're going to be, that trajectory is feeding the variety need. That you're gonna make sure that you mix things up. And I think one of the benefits you also have is that your probably your average project duration is relatively quick. I would imagine, I don't know, you tell me, 9 months, 12 months.
Yeah, anywhere between 6 to 12 months.
Right. Based on that description. And so you're not going to be on these long haul jobs, so you're gonna move to the next one. And then also, for the PM side, at least, if I heard you right, you're billing like a third of their time to per job. So that means they're going to have a mix of jobs going at any point in time. So they've got that variety going on too.
Yeah, and our PMs, like where they run about 3 jobs. So we have an assistant PM position as well, and the purpose of that is to promote them up to PM, right? And so that for us, the APM is really on quite a few jobs because they're handling submittals, RFIs, some of that stuff. But he's at least learning how to like run OAC meetings, right? Taking meeting minutes, doing all the stuff that you want to do as a project manager, so that when you are doing it, you've had the life jacket on for so long now, you feel good that you're not going to drown when you're out there swimming. But yeah, as far as like RPMs, RPMs run about 3 jobs just because of the size of jobs we're doing. We'll price ourselves out of the market if we had just one PM solely dedicated to a job. And if we've kind of found for the size jobs we do that, anything more than 3 jobs gets to be a little bit too much, where the PM's not focusing enough on it, not helping solve some of those problems, not updating the schedule as often. Three jobs is a good mix for us on PMs.
Cool. Good. So that might be a decent segue into this last bucket that I've got for handling this young workforce and their needs. And I think, as you called out, it's not just the young workforce anymore that's craving balance. What are you doing what strategies do you have to create that positive balance in your business? Work-life balance, that is.
Yeah, well, first it comes down to you got to make sure you at least have enough staff to make sure that nobody's drowning, right? Like, you can't overwork everybody.
How do you know if somebody's drowning?
What's that?
How do you know if somebody's drowning?
You can usually tell on the financial metrics of the job and schedule pretty quick. Those two are kind of my go-to. If we do monthly cost to complete reports, if those monthly cost to complete reports are starting to just go up and down, it means the PM doesn't have a really good handle financially of what the job's doing. And then if the schedule's starting to slip, then the superintendent's overworked and they need some support. And the same for the PM if the schedule starts to slip. So
that's great. Yeah, let the numbers tell you whether you've got somebody up over their eyeballs. You could be like, "Hey, you good?" And they're like, "Yeah, I'm fine." Right? But
can't measure it, can't manage it.
Yeah, that's right. If the numbers aren't where they need to be, you probably got somebody up to their eyeballs. Okay, so one is make sure that you don't bury people, and keep your eyes peeled for the signals that people are getting buried. What else do you do to promote work-life balance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want I don't want to get the email at 10 p.m. because I'm not going to check it at 10 p.m. I've got young kids. I want people to go home and spend time with their kids. It's part of that culture of like it comes back down to the culture of like, hey, look, if the client calls you, because we build restaurants, know that like the client's the most important person. If that client's calling you on Friday at 9 p.m., that's probably pretty important. You need to answer that call because it never fails. You build a new restaurant and the hood goes off right Friday at 9 o'clock during rush hour. So like I want them to make sure that they're answering the call. But other than something directly from the client, like, look, we're not curing cancer in kids. Like, most of the stuff can wait till 7 a.m. the next morning, except for a direct call from the client to your cell phone. Like those are important. We got to make time for that. But other than that, like most of these problems, it's kind of like that. You've got your 40 hours in the week. Like, it's time balance. Don't get so sidetracked on emails are the worst, right? It's so easy if you turn off notifications on your emails. Like, check your emails like once in the morning when you get in, maybe once around 10, maybe once right after lunch. But don't just constantly sit there on your emails like it's a text message thread. Like, turn off notifications so that you can task manage. I like to time manage, like time block. So like I'll put my calendar like, okay, I'm working on X for an hour, right? And when I was a PM, I'd be like, hey, I'm going to spend 2 hours on this job, 2 hours on this job, and 2 hours on this job. And then I've got, 2 hours for random emails, or an hour here and an hour here for random emails. But it's like, at least I know like during that 2 hours for that job that I've got dedicated, I'm going to do as much as I can. So if you start to do that for a week and you're not, at that point, you'll start to be where you're not just putting out fires. And when you stop putting out fires, it's a lot easier to turn that computer off at 5 o'clock and go home.
Love it. That's great. And so in this, I'll work backwards on two things here. Most recently you were discussing this, consistency in time management behaviors, and that you yourself practice these same techniques.
Yeah.
And when you talk about them, you are not merely paying lip service to what you've heard is a good idea, but you are doing it. You're a product of that yourself, and so you have a lot of credibility. You can be a mentor. You can show them how you do it and what you do. Your own behavior matches your communication to your team. You know what I'm saying? And that's a big deal. I remember there was a time I was working with a group, on time management, and the executive over top of this group was complaining to me that people are all over the place. They're unresponsive and everybody's super stressed out and they're just not on top of their stuff. They just need time management behaviors and, things along those lines. And meanwhile, I was sitting with him and he had 11,000 unread emails.
Oh my gosh.
Right. Oh, I was like, dude. Oh.
I like to have it like be less than 50 on the little iPhone, the bubble, like.
Me too, but like I like it at 0 every single day before I wrap up.
Yeah.
That's how I roll, right? But it's my point is, and this also goes to your communication with your team about balance, right? Like you when you tell your team, hey, you don't have to answer emails late at night, and you don't have to deal with text messages and all that. Like all that stuff can wait till 7 a.m. This is the one thing I want you to keep your eyes peeled for if it happens, that I want you to be responsive to. And a lot of leaders will say that, but then they themselves are responding to emails at midnight, and they are demonstrating that sort of hyper control behavior of their own world, and it sets a tone. And so people will tend to act that out. And so yet again, it's another spot where I'm talking about consistency between your communication and your behavior, and those things creating a sense of harmony, and people don't kind of get the wrong read. On one end, it's about make sure that you balance, and on another end, it's about make sure you stay on top of your stuff. And in both of those areas, these are really, when it comes to creating balance, I think the way that you said it was better than the way I'm about to rephrase it. So go back and rewind, audience, to that moment. But just this idea that, life gets a whole hell of a lot easier if at 5 o'clock you're done. You've actually got your stuff under control. And that's only possible if you are effective at priority and time management from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., whatever it is that you're working. I don't think it's unreasonable that people work an 8.5 to 10 hour day most days. I think that's fair. I think it is unreasonable when it starts to become 12 hours day after day after day after day for most people. And anyway, and one other thing that I just want to call out, just a shout out to one of my favorite books. Have you ever read Primal Leadership?
No, I haven't. I should.
That's a great book. It would connect with you, I think. But on this one topic that we're on right now, there is a leadership style. They basically, in the book, they talk about 6 different leadership styles, and 4 of them are dissonant leadership styles, and 2 of them are resonant leadership styles. And the key is to make sure that you don't accidentally use dissonant leadership styles. There's a time and place for dissonant leadership styles, like where you want to do those things, but you want to do them intentionally to kind of shake things up, right? Like command and control. And I can't remember all the terms that were used in the book. It's not handy in my brain anymore. But the one dissonant style that a lot of people in our industry are guilty of, being unaware, is what's called a pace setting style, where the leader is going so hard, so fast, so consistent, like, they're so intense that they're giving a vibe to everybody in the organization that if you don't go this hard, this fast, and this intense, you're failing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think one of the things our industry needs more of, if we want to create happier workplaces and happier employees, are leaders that are themselves in balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, your career should be a marathon. It shouldn't be a sprint every day. You've got to pace yourself. You got to have time management. If you're going to burn yourself out and you're going to be so frustrated with everything, if you just, you're always working 12-hour days.
I'm with you. So, it's good stuff. I'm glad we talked about all that stuff. I want to circle back to compensation in this mix. So compensation, I heard you loud and clear. You got to make sure that you're dialed in on what the compensation is in your market. Any recommendations or tools for what you'd use to get dialed into what the going rates are?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, most of these recruiters, will send you, like if you sign an agreement, if you're an employer, and you're signing an agreement with, 1 or 2 or more recruiting firms, ask your recruiter that you work with to send you the latest and greatest metrics for at least your area. They'll usually send them to you.
That's right.
So yeah, ask the recruiters that you work with. Also, like ChatGPT is pretty good.
Yeah, GPT's okay. You
Recruiters
know,
are great for it.
Glassdoor, is another tool. It's pretty good, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And I like what you're saying, because the recruiters are plugged into whatever the paid services are.
They know because they have like their placement chart. Like they're the ones that are doing real data. Like, hey, we placed 50 superintendents, 25 project managers over the last month, and here was their pay range.
Yeah, it's pretty timely. I agree. I think that's a great strategy.
Make sure you ask for your size market though, like because don't just you don't want to be, if you're a $10 million GC, you don't want to be comparing yourselves to a $100 million or $200 million GC.
That's right. Yep, that's right. I think all very good advice. Let's talk on another end of comp, which is incentive based compensation. What's your philosophy or approach to incentive structures, bonus programs, commissions, whatever? Like what are you doing on that front?
Yeah, we have bonus plans here. And ours are very straightforward. Like we don't want to get overly complicated with it, but I guess before I get into the actual plan, two things I've noticed with bonuses. Some people are heavily motivated by bonuses, and some people could not care less.
Yeah.
They're all the base salary. And I'm not saying they're like a worse employee. Like it's just a different mindset, right? Like some people are just not motivated by the bonus structure. It's more about like, what can I count on every 2 weeks that I know I'm going to get? And then the bonus is a nice little just to have. And some people look at that bonus as like, oh, I'm going to get that bonus and I'm going to make sure that I can get it as high as possible. We have a very simple bonus plan here. I mean, for our PMs and supers, it's very, very simple. The way that ours works is we take the gross profit of the job. PM gets 2.5%. Superintendent gets 2.5% of the gross profit of each job.
Nice.
If once I say it gets a little bit more complicated, we have KPIs now. We've over the last year or two, we started doing KPIs. We think that's important. So we have metrics that we have to hit. If you get below a certain score on your KPI, then it can get dinged down to 50%. And if it goes really low on your KPI, it's probably not a good job anyways because you're not really doing your job because your KPIs are so low. But, if you get down below a certain score on your KPIs, then it would be 0. But we also, as the carrot end of the bonus, if let's say a job, simple math say, let's say it's got $100,000 worth of gross profit in it. If the job ends up making $150,000, whether that be by change orders, buyout, however you got there, right? As long as anything over the original base bid profit gets bonused at 5% instead of 2.5%. So, if it was going to make 100, PM was going to make $2,500 in bonus. But if they made 150, now they're making a $5,000 bonus on that job.
Right on. Yeah, I two best practices in there to emphasize. Your bonus program should be easy to understand. People need to know exactly how you're exactly right. There will always be people who care very little about the bonus program, but the only thing worse than a bonus program that doesn't incentivize people is one that frustrates people. And one of the things that make them frustrating is when people don't know how they are going to make their bonus. So when you make it simple, that's key. And then the other piece is that it shouldn't be just about profitability, that there's some other considerations that come into the picture, like client satisfaction, like safety, right? I'm sure it is, right? Client satisfaction, safety, subcontractor satisfaction, things along those lines that we don't just want to make money on a job. We want to have a happy customer. We want to have a subcontracting community that wants to work with us on the next one, and we want to send everybody home safe at night, right? And if we can do those things as an example, and we're profitable, well, then you're winning, right? Like that's a fantastic job, and I think that's great, man. Really good stuff. Before we wrap up here, I just want to get a little insight on what's going on in Nashville, man. Like, how would you describe the market dynamics in Nashville today? I know we have audience all over the country, thousands of people. They're always wondering what's going on in somebody else's backyard. What's it like in Nashville, at this point in early 2026?
Yeah, Nashville is, I think, still a pretty big city. It's not as big as it was. I mean, we're definitely still growing. I think at one point the joke here in Nashville a couple years ago was like the city bird was the tower crane. Because I think at one time we had like, I'm wanting to say about 30 tower cranes up. It was unreal. It was just like,
it was on fire. I know. Every one of our subcontractor clients that could go to Nashville went to Nashville.
Yeah, it was insane. We were seeing just jobs go for, anything. Like, it didn't matter what it cost. They just wanted to get it built. Like, and we were like, okay. But, we've definitely seen it plateau. And then Q4 of last year and a little bit of Q1 this year, it just kind of slowed down a little bit. A lot of that has been with just, I think, the uncertainty of the market. I'm sure y'all have probably done quite a bit of discussions about the uncertainty of the market right now. And if I'm an owner and I've got a pro forma, and I'm a restaurateur because we deal in hospitality a lot, but if I'm a restaurateur and I'm running the pro forma numbers and I don't know what interest rates are going to be, or there's this potential material escalation or whatever, it's like, hey, let's just wait for a couple months, and see what happens. And then time kills deals, and then, they lose that spot, that spot gets leased to another person, and now they're looking for another venue. So
yeah,
we've seen a lot of, pricing, and then, the numbers didn't work.
Deals that looked like they were going to go, that got put on hold, that maybe died a slow, weird death. That's happening everywhere, man. I mean, anything that's interest rate sensitive has done that, and construction cost input sensitive to a certain extent, has also influenced that. Though those haven't been up across the board. Construction input costs everywhere, but. That sounds about right. Any markets really rolling, and any markets really struggling?
Well, I would say, like with hospitality, the thing about that market right now is that it's still rolling. Like, it's kind of interesting. I've been here doing this for about 15 years, and I'm now renovating restaurant spaces that we built out 5 to 10 years ago. One of the things that we kind of see in hospitality is like, you got to keep up with the Joneses, right? It's kind of like an Airbnb or something. You make sure that you're either going to become like that established kind of staple, like a Nashville staple. And in that case, you're usually fine. Or you got to make sure that you're kind of keeping up with the Joneses. Like what we see in hospitality is, you sign a 5 to 10 year lease and you do pretty well as a restaurant. But then let's say that it's time to renew that lease. It's been 5, 6, 7 years, whatever your lease term is. Well, the landlord decides to double the rent. Well, you were making your numbers at what the original rent was, but then that your revenue is not going to just exponentially go up on year 7 and rent's going to double. So we've seen a lot of restaurants, that'll then close down when it's time to renew that lease, maybe move to a different spot or cash out. And then, we'll see a new concept go in that same spot. So we've been fortunate enough to actually build a couple of spaces in the space that we're already familiar with, which is a pretty good selling point for us. We're like, hey, we got the as-builts over here. I know exactly where what the MP&E situation is.
Yeah. I know where your duct work is running.
Yeah, we know where the chase is. And, the other thing about hospitality sector that we deal in is, like the interest rates can make a difference, but a lot of banks aren't really lending to hospitality right now. But a lot of it is private equity, private capital funded projects, partnerships, that kind of stuff, where they're less focused on the interest rate, but more focused on speed on how you can get it opened, and then the overall cost of the job, and VEing what makes sense, but not VEing something to death. I think you and I were kind of talking a little bit. We see all the time. It's like sometimes owners can't get out of their own way on like, look, I'm with you. Hey, let's save $100,000 on tile. Let's go for it. But let's not wait until the 11th hour where we're missing the deadline to order the tile, and now the restaurant's opening a month later. It's like, how much did that $100,000 save you if you lost a month's worth of rent?
100%. Got to help. You got to help save your owners from themselves.
Sometimes.
That is a real thing. Yeah. Well, Chase, I appreciate you being with me today, man. Great to chat with you. I think we covered some really interesting ground and hopefully useful and fun conversation for the audience. If anybody want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
Our dowdleconstruction.com, or you can email me at cmanning@dowdleconstruction.com.
Awesome. Well, very good. Thanks for being with us. Stay in touch.
Thanks, Chad.
See ya.
See ya.